Okay, some of you may know I was planning on redoing my color scheme for my blanket, so let's start with that first. I now have 14 colors compared to the 6 that my original plan had included. So I'll go through those with you quickly, and then I will have a photo of just this image right here posted on my Facebook page as well, and I will link that for you below. The coldest down here, we've got lavender smoke, then mulberry, periwinkle, sea blue, dark country blue, turquoise, medium green, key lime, yellow, sun gold, light peach, desert glaze, terracotta, and tropical pink. I expanded my temperature range as well after doing a little bit of research with the temperatures in my area from last year. I will give partial credit to that to my fiance. He is the one who pointed out that the middle of my blanket might entirely be red, which could easily be the case. So expanded things, changed it up a little bit, and I really like the way my first row is coming out. So I will have an image linked for this below. Let me know what you think. Show me your color schemes if you've decided to come up with something different. I will also have a few other color ideas for you down below as well. If you have not started your blanket, that is perfectly fine. Today is only the 17th of the month, so doing 2 squares per day, you'll get caught up by the beginning of February. So just get started. Alright, let's get into the content that you came to this video for in the first place. I have 3 squares here that I'm going to show you how I plan on connecting them for the blanket. These are the first 3 squares for the second row of my blanket. I will show you a picture of what my first row looks like, and if you'd like to show me what yours looks like, I would love to see it. So let's get started. I've got my first square here. That is the solid color square to get that corner effect that I had showed you in my intro video, and then my square here for the 15th of the month is dark country blue. So I already have my tails sewn in like I had shown you in my previous video. So what we're going to do now, I get a little quirky about this. It doesn't really matter, but I know that in the long run it'll bother me. So I like to find the spot where they ended. I can tell here where they have chains versus stitches, so that is what I'm considering to be the top of each square. So, and then here's the top of this one. You're going to take those and find the right sides. Now I'll show you the right and the wrong side in comparison on these 2 squares here. The right side is what is facing you as you are working. The wrong side is the back of that, where your tails would be clipped off. You can find the small little frayed ends. It shouldn't be hard to see the difference there. So what we're going to do is take what we consider the right sides of the 2 squares that you're joining, and we're just going to sandwich them together. Now, in order to join it where you want it, right there in the middle of those, I'm going to put them together, and then we're going to be crocheting across this section right here. We're going to join them. So the way that we're going to do that is by taking our yarn. We're going to create a slip knot. In my tutorial on how to make these squares, I showed you how to do a magic ring. Creating a slip knot is very, very similar. What you're going to do, or this is the way I like to do it, at least there are a few different ways. You're going to take the yarn and wrap it around your fingers twice, just like that. You're going to take that first strand, cross it over, cross that section over again, and instead of putting your hook in there to create a magic ring, we're going to grab a hold of that piece right here, which would now be on the left side, and just pull that. So you've created a knot here, and if you pull on this side it gets bigger, if you pull on that side it gets smaller. We're going to take our hook. I'm using the same size hook that I used to crochet these. It's the size I, 5.5 millimeters. We're going to put it into that loop that we created and pull it snug, not too tight. And then we're going to pick up our squares, and into the chain space of each of them is where we're going to put our first single crochet. If you decide on a different way to join your squares, that is perfectly fine. Just let me know how you plan on doing yours. So what we're going to do, we've got that loop on the hook. We put our hook through both of the chain spaces. We're going to grab a hold of that yarn and pull that through. So now we've got the 2 loops on there, just as if we were doing a regular single crochet. And then you're going to finish that off. We've got this little tail here, and just like before, I do like to tuck that in place so it's not going to go anywhere. And you have to really pay attention to these first couple of stitches, because if you end up off count, just like you misplaced a button and you end up with a crooked shirt, we're going to end up with a crooked square here. So into that first double crochet, and then we're going to peek inside here and find the first double crochet on that square that's in the back. Then we're going to single crochet across, making sure to grab both loops of both stitches. I guess it's not a huge deal, but it will cause variances in the way that your squares are joined. So we want everything to look nice and uniform. So once I get 5 or 6 stitches across there, I'm going to drop that tail off, and then we'll sew him back through. So we're just going to continue along. And then our last stitch will be into the chain space on the other end. So in going across here, you should have, I believe, 14 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, oops, 15, 16, sorry, 16 single crochets the entire way across. You've got the 14 stitches and then 1 in each of your chain spaces. So we're going to finish this off the same way we had done with the squares. Cut off about a 3 to 4 inch tail, and then we're just going to pull that through, and we will sew these in just like we had done before. I will show that here for you if you are interested in seeing that again. We've got our needle, and I like to use my needle threader. This is the short tail from where we had started. We have already tucked it under about 5 or so stitches. Skip that first loop, so you're going over top of that one, and then go back under all of the rest. You want to pull it snug, not too tight. You don't want to cause any puckering of your square. And then we've got that little remaining piece, snip that off. Now, the way that I have done this, you can see the joint on the front looks very nice. I like the way that this is put together. It's very simple, because what we really want to showcase in this blanket are the multicolored squares. I didn't want to do anything super fancy as far as joining them goes. There is a ridge along the back, which not a huge deal if you decide at the end of this project, the end of December, that you want to back your project with some fleece or a different type of fabric. You can easily hide those. It's not a huge deal, but I will show you here shortly how you can use that ridge to your advantage on the front of your project. But let's get this tail in here. We want to make sure that our strands are along the back of our work. So what I like to do here is, you've got this tail, you've got this first loop right here. We're gonna go underneath a few of those. Remember, there's 2 loops per stitch, so we want to go under about 10 loops. Just gonna give that a nice little tug, pull it back into place, and then turn it around, skip the first one, go over top, and then go back underneath all of these. I know that it might be hard to see exactly what I'm doing right now since I am joining with the same color as I chose to use for the border of each of my squares. So I will show you here in just a moment something else that you can do instead. So there we go. We got 2 squares joined, tails all sewn in and ready to go. Okay, if you have seen my previous video on the tutorial for how to make these granny squares with the circle in the middle, then you'll remember my tropical pink squares. Previously, this color was not included in my color scheme, but now it is. But for now, I've chosen to use the squares to make something else, which I will show in one of my next videos upcoming very soon. But for now, I wanted to show you the join with a different color. Maybe that will help some of you be able to see exactly where your stitch placement needs to go. But I thought it was cool because this is on the front of my work, and I'm using a different color just to make things more interesting. Another pop of color, it'll make it really fun. The color that I'm using here is called Key Lime, which is also in the color scheme for my blanket for this year. But I have another square that I want to join along the side. So we're going to single crochet in the front of our squares rather than in the back, which I've chosen to do for the blanket. So instead of putting right sides together, we are placing wrong sides together and going about things in the exact same way as before. Well, almost exactly the same way as before. I'm going to create my slip knot and put my hook in there and pull that on. And with the wrong sides together, so that the front of our work is facing us, I'm going to put my hook into both of the chain spaces. And then remember to catch your longer tail here, because if you catch the short one, you might only get a stitch or 2 made before you realize your mistake, which I've done a few times, not a huge deal. So we've got that on, we've got our yarn over, and we are pulling that loop through both. And then make sure that you catch both loops of each stitch there. So you got 4 loops that you've gone through, and pull through. And we're just going to continue along until we get to the end, and I will show you how to make sure that your tails are hidden when your single crochet is along the front of your work as opposed to the back. When we get to this point, if you're on the front of your work, rather than tucking your tail behind, it's easier to then sandwich it between your squares, so then it will be on the back of your work. If you end up not doing that, it's perfectly fine. You can easily sew it back through. Finishing up, don't forget to have your last single crochet be in your chain spaces. Set things down, snip your yarn so that you've got your tail, and pull that through. So here's the front of our work. We've only got that one tail here in the front. on the back we have that little straggler. So you may find it easier to follow along with this using the different colors. The way that we're going to sew this one in is just slightly differently than we did before. You'll see these loops here from the bottom of your stitches. And you've got your tail coming out here. We want to sew things back through. Remember, each stitch has 2 loops. So we're going to skip the first, and go under the second, then go under each of the remaining until we can have that tail pop out at the end of our squares. So, pretty easy. Snip that off. And we're going to go back over here. Get this last tail sewn in. You don't have to sew in all of your tails after each square. You can do it once you get a full row made. Switch it up if you feel like it. Make things a little different. So what we're going to do here, I'm working on the back since we want that tail hidden. You've got this coming out of the end. I'm going to go under about 5 or so stitches. Pull that through. Remember to skip that first loop, go over it, and back underneath the rest of them. I'm going to snip that off. And there we go. We have some pink squares with the linen border joined with the key lime yarn. Got an upcoming project for you. Stay tuned.